Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk podcast / Raw Reaction show. Because of course I wasn't around yesterday to do a live show, so we're here with two fantastic people to talk about yesterday's game, yesterday's win over West Ham. And I'm very happy to be joined, first of all, by John, all the way from Miami, who is off the back of what was the Inter Miami score this weekend? John, talk to me. How did they get on?
Yeah, so we didn't win. But look, it's a new team and they're sort of sorting everything out. But it's going to be fun. So our first home game is next weekend against LA Galaxy, which is David Beckham's old team. And it's going to be the first game at the new stadium. I'll post some pictures and stuff. It should be pretty cool. Everyone's pretty excited.
Yeah, send them over for sure. I hope you're well. You doing good? You all right?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. I went to this whiskey festival they had in Miami yesterday.
Oh,
wow. So I was basically recovering until an hour or two ago, and then I had
so that's why you got your times all mixed up.
Unfortunately, no, I'm still with it enough for that. Because it's daylight savings time, and there was a little bit of a misunderstanding with that. But right. I would like to blame that on the booze, but that was just me not knowing how time works, apparently.
Yes, John was very surprised that over here in England we don't run daylight savings at the same time of year, which is odd when you think about it. But yeah, of course.
So I was sitting here at my time when we said we were going to do it, going, "Where the heck is everyone?"
John was sitting there at 7:30, like, where is everyone? But no, we're up and we're going. And also, we are joined by the busiest man in the Arsenal Twitter sphere. It's Graham Brooks. How are you doing, mate?
It's great to be back on again, Tom. Thanks for the invite, mate, and a pleasure to share your platform with John. I must say, Miami sounds a lot better than the weather we're having in this country at the moment, doesn't it?
We're getting storm upon storm, just constantly.
I know, flood upon flood and everything. I drove through a flood the other day when I had to travel from my place at work I had to get to an area through Tunbridge, and it was absolutely flooded. It was an absolute nightmare. But so yeah, it's great to be back on your show again and share a platform with John. I've watched John quite a lot, and looking forward to sharing the platform with him and you tonight.
Yeah. We should say, Graham is at the point where he's so busy that we've had this booked in for over a month. I had to schedule Graham in and everything, but he's here, and we're well up for this conversation about yesterday's game. Which, as I say, it's the first game this season that I've not been able to watch. It was what, as described as pulling a Webby, as we like to call it these days. But I managed to catch up on everything after. Basically, I was away doing I don't know if you've got these over in the US, John, but things called escape rooms. Do you have escape? Yeah. So I was doing this escape room down in Canterbury, which is people in the UK probably know where that is. And all the time it was like two rooms split up into two teams, 4 on each side, and it was like a prison break style thing. So you go and you're blindfolded, and you go and you're chained up on you're handcuffed to someone else, and you're handcuffed to a wall to start off with, and you have to do the communication. And the other team were getting so frustrated because they could see us through a camera, and they had to direct us of where we had to go. And they were getting really frustrated with me because every 5 seconds they could see me getting my phone out and checking the score, because I could see where my priorities were at. We did escape, by the way. I should maintain that. But yeah, I was quite distracted throughout. So Graham, I'll come to you, mate. Yesterday's game, I'm going to ask you very straight up: did we deserve to win that?
No. I think it was 3 points, and that's all that mattered at the end of the day. That's all that mattered to the fans. And I have to say that I thought that it was a real slog, and I think a lot of West Ham fans would think it was daylight robbery, because we just struggled in the game yesterday. I think there were many factors for that. I think that we weren't pressing from the front. We didn't move the ball quickly through midfield. We made a lot of loose passes in the game that left us vulnerable in transitions. I think that we struggled with the physicality of Marco Antonio. And I just think that we seem to lack pace in the centre of the pitch. There seems to be we struggle to create because we're not sharp with our passing, get it towards the D to get the forwards in. There's a lack of movement, you could say. I think as much as Arteta has defined a structure in the team, I think we struggle on the right-hand side. I question whether Pepe and Ozil, that partnership is really working. I think there was a lot of miscommunication in attack yesterday, players running in the same lines. And I think a lot of players just had a 4 out of 10 performance. And had it not been for some fine goalkeeping from Bernd Leno and some wasteful finishing from West Ham, I think we would have not got anything out of that game yesterday. So in the end, it was 3 points. But in answer to your question, no, we did not deserve to take the 3 points yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that popped up on my phone immediately was I was like, right, okay, it's kicked off now. I'm going to try and put my phone away and just wait to the end. But I couldn't, because the first thing that popped on my screen was that Bowen had hit the post within the first few minutes. I was like, oh, God, here we go. And but no, having caught up on everything, I watched it back. I just don't, John, I find it very difficult to understand how we're in this situation, because 6 months ago, Arsenal were in a period of, we thought there's no point to even watching this right now because it's so bad under Emery. We don't look like we're going anywhere. We're regressing constantly. Everything's changed. Arteta's come in. We're unbeaten in the Premier League in 2020, but it still doesn't seem assured. It still doesn't seem like there's a I don't want to use the word like there isn't a plan, because we can definitely see improvements, and I definitely can see a system trying to be implemented, but there's so many key issues and a lack of being a protagonist in our own home ground that it's really sort of leading us into this vulnerable state of at any time things could go awry, and we're just waiting for that moment where things aren't going to go right for us. And unfortunately, I felt like it was in that Europa League game against Olympiacos. But how worried are you about seeing these performances at home against teams where we really should be taking a protagonistic role in these games?
I'm actually not too worried about it. And the reason is because, like you said, it goes back to this plan that we do see being effectuated pretty well. Now, obviously, there were some downfalls, like in Europa League, that it's not a good thing. And I imagine that, there's going to be a lot of questions that this team is going to have to turn back and ask themselves about that. But when you look at the broader picture here and look at where we are in terms of this transitional period, you have to be a little bit optimistic with it. And it's not that I don't want to say you have to, because obviously there are some things that are concerning, and that's not going to change just because, we've gone on a run of form. And you said that things are different, and I think they are, but not to the point where that nerviness is something that's going to go away anytime soon, even at home against a team like West Ham. There's going to be a period going forward for a while, I think, where we're not going to be assured as we want to be yet, because I don't think all the pieces have been put in together just at this moment. And that's going to lead to games like this West Ham game. And I think Arteta kind of said it best about what the issues were. It was a lack of creativity. It was a lack. What he said was a lack of being able to visualize the attacking third, our attacking third. That the players have. And I don't think that's something that's going to come overnight. And when you look at the defensive structure of this team, even though there's been some shaky moments, it's undoubtedly improved. So I'm confident, that he's going to be able to do something with this team and get the attack to start clicking a little going forward. We have certain players like Lacazette who have been in really bad form and haven't been clicking very well. We have a really young striker in Eddie Nketiah. So I'm not surprised that we're not seeing this amazing fluid attack just yet, and we're relying on senior players like Aubameyang, Ozil to make stuff happen. So look, I think that as time goes on, we're going to see that picture, the visualization of what our attack needs to look like, start formulating a little bit better on the pitch. And I think that we're going to see that transpire. We just have to give it some time.
Graham, let's start picking out some individual performances and selections. So at the start of the game, once again, Socrates is picked at right back. Bellerin is on the bench. We know we've got this huge game against Manchester City in midweek. But Arteta's seemingly reliant on picking Socrates at right back. We saw it against Portsmouth. We've seen it. I believe we saw it. Did we see it away against Olympiacos? I feel like we did. And it's happening quite a few times. But obviously, this always comes back to the point about Ainsley Maitland-Niles not getting a shoe-in. But Socrates is doing okay. But what is your evaluation of the right back selection process that Arteta's making, and why is he choosing to go with the Greek?
I think, obviously, Bellerin's come back in, and I don't think he's at the level yet where he needs to be. He's coming back off an injury, so and I think asking him to play a lot of games is difficult. The option is he bought Cedric Suarez, and I think he's bought Suarez for direct competition with Bellerin for the right back spot. Suarez isn't quite ready yet, although he's close to being ready. Maitland-Niles did a good job when he first came in, and used him as that sort of inverted fullback when we shifted across, because he could move him into an attacking midfield or move him inside into midfield. But I don't think he sees that as Maitland-Niles' position moving forward. And I said this yesterday. I think that he sees Maitland-Niles more as a midfield player. And I think he's not doing enough in training to justify selection in that area just yet. I think the reason he uses Socrates is purely because Socrates, if we sort of like go forward and he wants to change the shape of the team, Socrates tends to stay back and defend. So I think that the left side is his attacking side, and we've seen like Xhaka shift across to the left side. Socrates will stay back on the right side to form part of the back four, and that's when we're going forward down the left-hand side. So he offers us that defensive element to the game that, if he's playing two fullbacks who go forward, sometimes you don't get. So I think he's playing Socrates as an out-and-out defender, and also he hasn't let him down in that position. It does mean that he's not going to get the combination with Pepe on the right-hand side, and I think I've got some question marks. I don't know if you have about the way we're using Pepe, because I don't think we're getting the best out of Pepe. But I think purely and simply, I think Socrates, he sees him as somebody who's basically, when we're attacking down the left side, will stay back in a defensive shape alongside the other two centre halves. I think he's not using Maitland-Niles there because I think he sees Maitland-Niles more as a midfielder. And I think Cedric Suarez will be competing for that right-hand spot with Bellerin when he's fit. So that's the reason Socrates is playing at the moment, in my opinion, because I don't think Suarez is fit and he wanted to give Bellerin a rest.
No, that's fair enough. I think that he's acquitted himself quite well to that role. I think we lack, obviously, the forward momentum on that side. And I think Pepe actually, you mentioned him and you brought him up, but Pepe has struggled without the sort of support, because what Pepe does like, and when we were sort of analysing Pepe at Lille when he was going to be joining, what Lille had was that they had a fullback that would overlap Pepe quite a lot, and he would play that inverted pass down the right-hand side. And without Bellerin there, and Bellerin does do it sometimes, but I still feel like Bellerin's not been the same player since returning from injury. He isn't making always those same type of runs that he used to. And I think Pepe does suffer slightly from not having that support in an attacking sense from his right-sided fullback. So we will come on to Pepe in a little bit, but I think Socrates adds a little bit more steel to the back line on the right-hand side defensively, but it is the playing out from the back possibly where we do suffer.
Yeah, the other, yeah, absolutely right, mate. He's not great with the ball. There was an incident yesterday when Marco Antonio did skin him a couple of times. He hasn't got a lot of pace, but I think he has done a solid job. I wouldn't say, as you say, I think he's come in and he's impressed Arteta with his positioning and what he offers the side defensively. I don't think he's let the side down yet, but I think he's only using him there at the moment until Bellerin gets fitter and Suarez is ready to possibly challenge for that position. But I don't see that's his long-term position there. I think he's just like a fill-in at the moment. And because I think that Maitland-Niles, I think he doesn't see him as a fullback. I think it's obvious to me that Maitland-Niles, for whatever's happened, when we're not privy to what goes on the training ground, obviously there was some sort of incident with Arteta. He wasn't putting enough into training. But I think he sees... See, Maitland-Niles has got a great opportunity, if he's got the right attitude, to try and force his way into that centre midfield, because I think we lack physicality and speed in our centre mid areas. I mean, and also, as he's had experience of defence, he could easily sort of like be somebody who could challenge for that position, because I think you saw yesterday with Ceballos and Xhaka. Not only is there a lack of mobility and athleticism there, they're both on the ball players and not very good off the ball. And I think we were vulnerable in transitions yesterday through the centre of our pitch. And the game to me has changed so much these days. It's a lot less of a technical game, more of a speed. It's all about power and pace. And Maitland-Niles has got those qualities. So if with the right attitude, I don't see any reason why he can't challenge for a midfield berth position. But he's not going to make his future at Arsenal at right back. He did a job and impressed Arteta when he came in. But clearly, I don't think Arteta sees him in that role moving forward.
No, I don't think he does, and I think that there is a very clear attitude issue for me, because the thing about Arteta is he doesn't. I don't think he takes things personally with players. I don't think he gets personal. I think he's extremely professional with how he deals with players that aren't necessarily behaving or performing or training in the right way, because there's been examples and case studies that we've seen throughout his short tenure. You look at Ceballos, originally was never in Arteta's plans, worked very hard in training. Arteta came out that his attitude had completely changed, and now he's playing week in, week out. Guendouzi had a behavioural issue whilst there in Dubai. He was left out for a week, and then he came in the week after and was given minutes as well. So Arteta is willing to turn over a new leaf for these players and give them the opportunities if they're willing to show that they're able, they are willing to do what is necessary to play in his system. A selection, John, that came in the game was also a first Premier League start for Pablo Mari, or Mari, however we want to pronounce it. Obviously played very well against Portsmouth, but a lot of people would turn around and say that it was Portsmouth. But how do you feel that the Spaniard acquitted himself against West Ham?
I mean, I thought he was very assured, and I think that it's interesting to have that left-footed defender now, because it opens up a whole new section of the pitch for us. And it's really, I don't remember the last time that we had a left-footed defender. Was it Vermaelen, right? It was Vermaelen. And it's pretty interesting to see that what we can do tactically now. And look, he's a big guy. He's a strong guy. He doesn't seem to be the fastest from what I saw, but he kind of has that Per Mertesacker thing going, where he can find himself in the right position, and he doesn't need to be the fastest person, because there were some concerning things. I think that he went in for a challenge on the right side of our box at one point in the second half, and kind of completely missed it, like one of these that would have put him directly in. Luckily, I think Luis, I think, came in and was able to kind of correct it, and at the end of the day, the West Ham player just didn't make anything of it. But, I think that there's going to be little mistakes like that. It's going to be an adaptation. There are a lot of, and Arteta said it better than I ever could, is that there are, especially with defenders coming in, foreign defenders coming in the Premier League, there is an adjustment period. It's a very difficult kind of league to just jump right into for a defender. Arteta says it's one of the most difficult positions, and I would imagine that being the case, especially in the Premier League. It's a very fast-paced, it's a very physical league, and there's a very little room for error when it comes to some of the talent that other teams have, even on the lower end of the table. So you could get punished anyway by almost any team at any point from a mistake. So you always need to be on your toes. And we've seen that, I mean, ad nauseum with players like Mustafi, who will make a mistake or whatever, and then all of a sudden they're punished for it. And we seem to be on the wrong end of that. So that's going to take some adaptation for him. But I mean, his distribution looks good. His stats looked good. You could say, yeah, this is just the West Ham team. But I mean, I don't know if you could do that in our position right now. And the way what we're trying to do in this rebuild, I think that you really need to. These aren't going to be the players potentially that are going to. This is not like your Van Dijk kind of a signing that completely revolutionizes our defense. But he looks to be a solid player, a technically gifted player. Maybe not the fastest, but he definitely put in a shift. And I think that we just need to see how he adapts and see whether maybe in a couple months, if he keeps getting selected, we can have a better sense of what the picture with Mari looks like. That being said, I think it is promising that he got the start twice now in the defense. I know maybe Mustafi is nursing a little bit of an injury, maybe. Although, if you looked at his social media, he's been posting a lot recently. So I think it's kind of like, and specifically like, I'm always here for my team, blah, 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 which wasn't like, oh, I want to be on the pitch because I'm injured and I really want to play, which I'm speculating a little bit, but I think that he just got the selection. And I think that it was one of those situations where he goes, listen, you have an opportunity now. Maybe Mustafi needs a little bit of rest, but to make that yours. And I think that he did it. There was nothing in there that I was really complain about. So we'll see where he goes from there. It was promising stuff from him though.
Graham, tactically speaking, from the back, the instant excitement, I think, came from seeing that we've got two centre-backs now that are very heavily in the mind that they are ball-playing centre-backs, with David Luiz loving to spray a pass out to the right winger or the left winger or straight through the middle with a low pass like we saw him set up Aubameyang the other week. And then you've got Pablo, who's also sort of akin to the same style, but more so, I think, likes to play it on the ground into the midfield. But also his sort of lofted balls are more so I don't want to say deeper, but they seem to come a little bit close to the halfway line when he sprays them out. They're more safer touches than what David Luiz likes to do. Have you noticed Arsenal's style of playing out from the back shift since Pablo and David Luiz have been playing together?
Well, that's only their second occasion playing together. I think it's and the first occasion, obviously, in the Cup at Portsmouth. In answer to your question, no, I haven't, to be fair. I think, you know what, I agree a lot with what John said on Pablo Mari yesterday. I thought he did struggle with the physicality of Marco Antonio. And there was that one instance in the first half where he rolled him very easily. And also, so if he's playing a high line, I think he hasn't got the pace to recover. That's the other worry. So I think, yes, we have got two ball-playing centre-backs, but I don't think that's the ideal partnership, in my opinion. I think you need a solid centre-half and a ball-playing centre-back, somebody who's to go and attack the ball and somebody who's got pace you can mop up behind. And that's why the Mertesacker-Koscielny partnership worked quite well, wasn't it? Because Mertesacker was slow, but he could attack the ball. Koscielny was always good in his prime. He was quite fast at mopping up behind. So this, I don't think, moving forward is the right partnership. I thought there was lots to admire from Mari on the day. I did say yesterday I thought that he struggled with the physicality a bit, and he lacks a bit of pace. But we have to say that's only his second game. I have noticed that probably I don't think we've changed too much. I think we're still trying to play out through the back. I still think it's a bit too slow from the back, and I do think there's too many sideways passing. I long for it to be got forward quicker and more direct. I like the way Ceballos is coming deep to start the play, but I think like the way he twists and turns and goes in different directions. I love to see that, but I just want him really to release the ball quicker. And we saw it in the Olympiacos game, players wanting too many touches. I think you've got to get the ball forward quicker to the forwards because West Ham, what Moyes did really well yesterday, they set up in a 4-2-3-1, but they actually had three midfielders. Fornals was assisting the attack, but dropping back with Declan Rice and with Noble. So they were like a 4-4-2 out of possession. And they got set. We allowed them to get set in position too easily. I think when you get the ball forward quicker in transition, you don't get the opportunity to get set. And I think no problem with us trying to play out from the back. I think Arteta has implemented a good style. He has made us defensively more solid. Probably that structure has come at the cost of more flair going forward. And that's going to take time to adjust, as John said. I think John's absolutely spot on with that. But I just want to see us move the ball quicker and get it forward to the forward players quicker. But in answer to your question, I haven't noticed it change dramatically. Whether we got two ball playing centre backs is the way forward, but at the moment that's what he's got to deal with, isn't it? Because Mustafi was injured, Socrates obviously is playing on the right hand side, Holding's still injured, and Chambers is injured, so he's limited what he can go with. And as we've said earlier, as John touched on, and even yourself have said in the past, I think he's limited by what he's got at his disposal at the moment. He's making the best. This is not his team yet. And I'm not criticising Arteta in any way. I think he's come in and he's done a fantastic job. We're still unbeaten in 2020, aren't we? There's lots to like by what he's done to the team already. And as he says, it is a process.
Yeah, it is. I mean, being unbeaten in 2020 in the Premier League is clear evidence of that, 100%. I think defensively we have improved. You can't drastically. Oh, I don't want to use the phrase "you can't polish a turd," but that keeps coming up in my mind because we criticise and. Arsenal's defensive line has been the target of so much criticism over the last what feels like a decade now that you without making massive changes to personnel, and by changes I don't mean little. And I think I saw a comment in the chat from Pud saying about how, Graham, you said that we can't keep buying defenders on the cheap and we need to invest heavily in that area rather than make do. And I think that whilst there is an element to Arsenal's transfer business where they need to be a little bit more savvy, and I think I see that with the Pablo Mari deal, but us actually spending bigger money on very promising players like William Saliba, for instance, coming in next season, is more the route that Arsenal need to take. We are going to have to be more street smart with the signings that we make because of the lack of Champions League football and the lack of finances that we're going to be, unfortunately, subjected to because of our lack of Champions League football. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens defensively in terms of a transfer window in the summer. But I think that there is a chance that we could see a backline that involves Pablo Mari alongside a William Saliba, who, as you say, you want someone who's going to be solid in there and quite quick. Saliba is definitely that, and he does complement Pablo Mari's style quite nicely because he can bring the ball out a lot better than what the Spaniard can. I don't know if anyone managed to catch the video that I posted of him playing in the semi-final of the French Cup, where he sets up a chance. It's an amazing run and then pass into the front line, which then led to the goal. But that's like that confidence from such a young guy is something that is needed at the back. I looked at when watching the Man City game. We're going to talk about Man City towards the end as we preview that game on Wednesday. But seeing the players in the lineup, Bruno Fernandes was looked at to. And the commentator was saying how he inspires the rest of the team to be better. And he has come in and annoyingly massively improved that Manchester United side because he breeds confidence. And Arsenal need a player in that back line that is going to do that. And I feel like there are players that are starting to do that. And John, one of the players that I feel has improved a lot, and we've mentioned him already tonight, is Dani Ceballos. And the role that he played in the game yesterday was massive. And a lot of people put him down as their man of the match because he just seemingly kept the game ticking over, playing that Santi role quite deep in the midfield and keeping the passes flowing. How impressed have you been since he reintegrated himself into the lineup, and where can you sort of see him evolving towards the end of the season?
I mean, look, the guy was out the door, had one foot out the door, it seemed, until Arteta kind of, gave him a chance, and all of a sudden now he's absolutely pulling the strings in the midfield. I'm looking at the stats that he had against West Ham. In 90 minutes, he was first attempted passes. He had 98. West Ham's entire midfield had 99 attempted passes. He was third in pass success, 88%. Second in key passes with only one. First in touches, 121 versus West Ham's entire midfield, which was 155. First in possession, which was 10.8% versus their entire team, which was 30.8%. First in successful tackles. First in being dispossessed, which was 0 times. I mean, look,
that's an amazing memory you have.
I had it ready to go. I only remembered to get the stat. That's the only thing I remembered. But look, I remembered that he had a great game. And it's not just this one. I mean, he's put in excellent performances. There's been some times where it was a little bit shaky, but when you look at the totality of his performances under Arteta, you have to say that he's been one of the better players. And I don't know about. I could see why you might give him man of the match. Personally, I would have given it to Leno, but. That's a whole nother. I guess we'll get to that later on. But Ceballos, look, I know you rate him. You know that we've had these discussions before. That we think he's a great player. I think that he really was playing, and not even just that Ramsey role, because I thought he was actually deeper than the way Ramsey used to play, especially later on in Ramsey's career at Arsenal. He was always a little bit more forward, but. Ceballos was dropping back deep at certain points, and he was really like almost alongside Xhaka or alongside Mari and Luiz, like all the way in the back line at certain points, playing those like long balls and then linking up with the wings. So he was doing a lot of very good stuff. Now the question is that it is the caveat of West Ham, but they were playing an aggressive line as well. They were playing a very aggressive defensive strategy, and I think that to be able to pull those numbers in really kind of shows he's the kind of player that I think Arteta wants to play in his side. A player that's good, doesn't get dispossessed, that's good at maintaining possession, that's good at moving the ball forward. That's what he wants in a midfielder, I think. And if you look at it, that's the kind of almost the style that he was, not as physical and not as maybe dynamic going forward in attack. He was a little bit maybe more defensive-minded player, but when you look at how Pep likes players, when you look at how Wenger likes his midfielders, I think Wenger would have loved Ceballos in his team. Let's put it that way. And I think that it's exactly the kind of player that Wenger would have liked. So I don't know. That's maybe not as much of a good a basis for saying whether a player is good or not. But when you look at his performances, I think he's a player that we would really need to consider strongly keeping if we can have the ability to do it. And I know there's a lot of people who aren't sold on him. And I see the reasons why you're not sold on him. Maybe it hasn't been enough. There's not enough information yet to make an ultimate decision as to whether you think it's reasonable to keep him or make a deal for him. But he seems to be doing really, really well under Arteta's system. And he seems to be the exact kind of player that he wants to use in the midfield to progress the ball. So I'm happy with him. And I hope he keeps progressing because I think he's a really talented player.
Yeah, 100%. I think that You mentioned about what, like we've talked about him previously. I felt that the only good performance before he reintegrated himself was the first home game he played against Burnley. After he played that game in the Emery system, that inventive style and the dynamism and the sort of the imagination that he brings to the side was lost in the very passive style that Emery wanted to play. And since coming back into Arteta's system, which is a much more free-flowing, expressive style, it really suits Ceballos down to the ground. And actually, if you look at Real Madrid this season, I felt that they've lacked that player in the midfield. They've seen a much more industrious midfield with Valverde coming in and being that sort of deeper player with Casemiro. But the more that Kroos sort of gets shifted out of that lineup, and I was shocked when Kroos didn't start against Man City the game of the Champions League, and I think that's one of the biggest key factors as to why Real Madrid didn't win that game. And Ceballos plays a deep, creative role at Arsenal at the moment. We said that he doesn't really suit the number 10 role. He's more of a number 8, and I think he's definitely showing that now. But it's going to be intriguing to see what happens come the summer. I, in my personal opinion, I don't think we're going to make the deal permanent. I don't think that's something that we will exploit, because I think Real Madrid will want more money than he is probably worth, in my opinion. And that's based upon what I've seen this season. It's based upon the market value of other players that we could go for and the needs of us financially of where we need to invest our money this season. So I think that we'll go down a different route, but we've got him at the club. We may as well exploit what he's giving to us until the end of the season comes around.
Really quick, sorry to interrupt you, but someone, if you don't mind, the Kamal made a comment in the live comments saying Xhaka and Danny just too open and we look weak to counterattacks again. I will say that is one concern I do have with Xhaka and Danny as a partnership, and it's the same one that we had with Xhaka and Ramsey as a partnership, where Xhaka would stay back and then Ramsey would go forward and leave Xhaka open. And so that is a concern to have. That being said, I think that when you have a structure a little bit better in the defensive area, when players know which half spaces and which areas to cover when the midfield loses the ball or possession, and how to kind of compact yourself and avoid getting your butt kicked, I think that can be lessened a little bit. I think that I don't see it as big of an issue as when it was just Xhaka and Ramsey in the midfield. So, but it is a valid concern that I didn't mention earlier.
Yeah, Tom, can I just add to the point there? It's a very good point made by John and by the guy in the chat. I think that and another guy mentioned in the chat, I didn't catch his name, about the fact that the balance isn't right in midfield, which is absolutely 100% right, because basically, as I said earlier, when I spoke earlier, we got two sort of like ball playing the deep line midfielders. We haven't got, like, Torreira offers us balance in his defensive discipline and his tackling and in ball recovery. So you don't get to, although Ceballos did make a few good ball recoveries yesterday, I don't think that's the side of his game. I think what Arteta has done and what he needs to do really to sort of try and stop this lack of balance and the fact we're open to counterattacks is, I think the spaces have got to be smaller. So that's one thing I've noticed since he has been in. Under Emery, the gap between the attack and the defence was too big. And Xhaka and Ceballos are like small space players who are not very athletic. They're not very speedy. So the team needs to be better, and he's got that shape and structure where the players are closer together. So we push up higher normally, though, as I said earlier, we weren't pressing as well yesterday as what we have been. But the team as a whole, the shape's better, players are closer together, play through the lines better. But I think that's a really good point, that we are open to counter-attacks when we get stretched, because the central midfield players we got there are not very athletic, they're not very quick, and we haven't got like a player who's able to sort of like get recoveries and like offer the sort of balance that, say, someone like Torreira. And I don't know who we've got, who we could possibly bring in, because I think this Ceballos-Xhaka partnership is probably the best that we've got at the moment. I don't see who else he could bring into that double pivot. Obviously, the Torreira injury is a massive blow, but I just thought I'd add that to what John was saying.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier. Ainsley Maitland-Niles had a big opportunity. I felt, had he have trained right, had he have done better, to make that what he's proclaimed to be his role more of his own. And he's obviously not done that enough in training to warrant that selection. And that's completely down to Arteta, and I'll back whatever decision that he makes. But we are lacking in that midfield area. I think it is an area. Even if Ceballos was to stay, for me, we had to invest again. I felt we need another quality body in that midfield. We've been linked with the likes of Thomas Partey that would definitely add a lot more in strength and physical presence to that midfield that we desperately need. But I also still think that we needed like that Santi style player. I think there is options out there beyond just Ceballos that are more attainable in the summer and somewhere that we could go down in the future. There's a lot of players that I want to talk about. The last sort of player that I want to mention, I'm going to skip over Pepe briefly, and he might come up in the Man City chat because we could talk a whole podcast about Pepe. But Graham, the last person I want to talk about before we do mention Man City is Lacazette. He came off the bench, he scored the goal. He's received untold stick. It's got to the point now where people are saying, Atletico, you can have him, because that's the biggest sort of rumour going around at the moment, that if we can get 50 million, 40 million for Lacazette, that people would bite your arm off for him. The fact is that he's come off the bench in a couple of games and he's got really key and important goals in these games. And that is a priceless asset to have in some senses, someone that will come off the bench and can give you a goal. Where do you see yourself lying with Lacazette? Do you see him being a replaceable asset that we have and you would be fine with him leaving in the summer? Or do you think he's someone that Arsenal should be doing the utmost to try and keep at the club?
I think the likelihood is that Aubameyang's not going to renew his contract. So if Aubameyang doesn't renew his contract, bearing in mind I've always wanted Aubameyang to play down the middle, I think we've got to do utmost to keep Lacazette. Now, I think when he came on yesterday, he turned that game in our favour. What he did was yesterday really well was he became the focal point. He started doing well all the things that he used to do well that he's probably been struggling for this season. The West Ham defenders we pushed West Ham back. Those West Ham defenders couldn't come up as much as what they were doing, and he became like a physical presence. He loves a physical battle. West Ham are a very physical team, and I did say in that interview yesterday I did on AFTV that Diop, the West Ham defender, was an absolute beast yesterday, and Nketiah struggled with his physicality. But when Lacazette came on, he relished that battle. He loves that sort of game was set up for him yesterday. The moment he came on, I don't know if you noticed, he drilled a pass immediately out wide to I think it was Ozil, and I thought to myself, yes, he's back. Do you know what I mean? I honestly saw it yesterday in his game. That his attitude was right, his desire was right. He wanted to win the game for the team, and he took the way the precise finish showed the hallmarks of a goal scorer. People were saying he's not a goal scorer. He's been struggling to score goals, but all forwards go through bad patches. And I think his confidence has been hit by some of the things. I think he's only human. He might have seen some of the stuff on social media. That's why when he scored his goal against Newcastle, which was a shank, wasn't it? He scored against Olympiacos and he got that shot he deflected in off his own foot. You could see what it meant to him. And we celebrate that in the stadium massively, even though the goal was irrelevant. I think I would be looking to keep him. And I think he offers us something in build-up play. And when he's at the top of his game, he's not an elite forward like Aubameyang, but he's still a top goal scorer. So I was pleased with him yesterday. I think Nketiah's come along, and I think it's only right that Arteta looks at Nketiah, because I think you have to look at what Nketiah offers in the fact that if we lose Aubameyang, can he press from the front? Can he make those runs in behind? Can he do the things that Aubameyang can do? But also, I think that it put pressure on Lacazette, because he's lost his place to a young kid who's obviously come in and doing well. So he's come on now with the right attitude, and he's taken his chance, and he's now scoring again. So it's an interesting dilemma for Arteta, isn't it? Eddie's done well. He struggled with the physicality of Diop yesterday, but Lacazette came on and showed us that he is still a good forward. He can take his chances. So I was impressed with him yesterday. I thought he was our three best players yesterday. Lacazette, because I thought he changed the game when he came on. Bernd Leno for all his saves that kept us in it. And as John said, Ceballos was excellent with his passing yesterday. So in answer to the question, I think Lacazette, I was impressed with him yesterday. I still think he's got a future at the club. And I still think, because I don't see Aubameyang staying, I don't think we'll be able to afford his wages. And I don't think we're going to get Champions League next year. So resigned to the fact, as much as I love him, that he's going to go. And I don't begrudge him that. 31, last big contract. But, Lacazette, I think we have to recognise he's still, albeit in the French league, people say, well, it's easier to score in the French league. But you've got to remember, he was our player of the season last year. And I still think he can be a top striker for the team. Yeah,
and people forget that so quickly, that he was our player of the season last year. It's a really, really good point. I still think that Arteta will favour Nketiah in games. I think Lacazette will probably start on Wednesday. For me, I think that I'm not sure if it would be my choice. I still think I'd rather. I mean, if Tierney's back fit, I know it's a big call to throw him in, but I'd be tempted to play Aubameyang through the middle, push Saka up to a left wing role, and play Tierney at left back. Because I think that Saka against either Sterling or Mahrez on Wednesday is defensively a recipe for disaster. And it's a nice segue to go into that game. John, Manchester City on Wednesday. I don't know if you managed to catch much of the Manchester derby today, but Man City, whilst they were beat 2-0, played quite well. They seemed to have that final ball. I think the lack of Kevin De Bruyne probably aided with that happening. Whether or not he's fit for Wednesday is a massive implication of what we might see on Wednesday, but I feel if they played quite like they did today, there is always that chance that Arsenal could nick a point. I'm not going to go out on my limb and say a win, but there's a chance that Arsenal could get something from that. How do you see this game playing out?
It is really difficult to call this one. And, they especially considering using this United game as a baseline, considering probably not only one of their best players, maybe one of the best players in Europe wasn't on the pitch at the time, in Kevin De Bruyne, like you alluded to. So I think that on any given day, I think, and it's kind of a cop out, but on any given day, I think any team in the Premier League can pretty much beat any other team. That's been proven time and time again. It needs to be a question of, on the day, is this team going to actually be up for it? And I imagine they will under Arteta. That seems like in the past, remember, it's always been like in the first 15, 20 minutes, you can tell what kind of an Arsenal performance you're going to see. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that even if we go down in a game like this, this team can fight back. And because of that, I think there's always a chance. And if you actually look at it on paper, from a results perspective, they've lost more games than we have this season. We've drawn a lot more, but they've lost more than we have. And that's kind of weird, right? So there's always that's an understatement. But look, it's possible. I think that we have, if everything clicks, it's possible to beat them. And I think that when you look at their players that played today, you have like Fernandinho, these guys, they're getting older, and he looked pretty tired today, even though he was like running his butt off too. So they just played today a big derby game. Yes, some of their key players were being rested, like De Bruyne. It looks like, there were some concerns over Aguero as to whether he got injured after he was wearing an ice pack or something. I'm just going to go assume and saying that all their players are fit. I'll use that premise because obviously our chances increase of beating them if their best players are not going to be able to play. If De Bruyne can't play, our chances go up. If Aguero can't play, our chances go up. So assuming that they are going to play, it's going to be a difficult game. And I think that we have a lot of young players on our team, and they need to be not be rattled by that. Let's put it that way. And and also Arteta needs to get them up for this game, which I think he would, considering he's going to face Pep. It's like this whole narrative. It's written that that's going to be an interesting game in the cards in the sky because of this. Pep going back and meeting his apprentice on the battlefield and all that fun stuff that I'm sure they're going to write about. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think we need to contain Sterling. I think we're going to, if De Bruyne plays, we're going to have to somehow contain him. I don't know exactly how you do that with the players that we have right now. I guess Xhaka, maybe you throw Ceballos on there. I think that Ozil is going to be key in a game like that because I don't think we're going to be able to get as much of the possession as we want. I think when you look at this Pep City team, they like to keep the ball. Even when they weren't playing very well against United, they tried to keep the ball. And off the ball, I think that when our team is stretched around off the ball, that's where sometimes we get some issues, especially when we're talking about, like, as Graham was saying earlier, what happened against West Ham when some players were being overloaded. So we'll see. what happens. I think that we can do it, depending on and whether we can do it. The chances increase the more injured players that they have. So that's my commentary on that.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think you round it up pretty well. It's a really weird game because I've seen a few people in the chat box. I know that we have Mancunian Red MUFC, right, who's a regular listener, although he's a Manchester United fan, who reckons that we're going to get turned over, unsurprisingly.
Probably.
But and that's a very real possibility. I mean, that's what they did to the Emirates. They completely turned us over in the first half.
Yeah.
But it's a different Arsenal that's going up there this time. It's a very, very different situation for Man City. Graham, I'm interested to know your thoughts on how you feel the mentality of the Man City players may affect them. Bernardo Silva was asked after the game the sort of limbo situation they're in the league, where they're too far off to win the title, they're too far off to sort of drop down and lose Champions League football. Do you think that's a really difficult sort of mental state to play in, that you're not really playing for anything bar the pride of winning football matches and trying to keep sort of form up for the Champions League run?
Yeah, I do. I think that's 100% right. And you saw it today. When they're playing, I don't think they're quite sharp in their passing. I don't think they're quite sharp in their movement. And I think that some of the players mentally, I wouldn't say they've switched off, but there's nothing riding on it. And I think that clearly showed, because I watched the game today. But I think what I took out of the game today is the way to actually beat Man City, and that is, and it's not just in this game. I've watched Manchester United now beat them twice by playing a system where literally they just play counter attack and use two pacey players who sort of like drift out to the wing. So you sort of like you play two players up. So literally you get. And I've noticed that 3 of Man City's last 4 defeats have come against teams playing 3 at the back, actually, which is another point. I don't think you go with that, but that's an interesting thing. But the thing I took out of it really was, yes, I think their mentality has dropped in the fact that they, and I hadn't seen Bernardo Silva's comment, but I think I noticed that they didn't seem sharp today. And I think that must affect them, absolutely. But also, we can't sort of disregard the fact that Kevin De Bruyne, not in that side, is a massive miss. And I think he'll be back on Wednesday against us. And his performance at the Emirates early in the season was one of the standout performances I've seen this season, and the way he ran that game. But that was against an Emery team that was totally unstructured, with gaps between the front and the back too big. What I'd like to see us to do, we've either got to commit one way or the other when we go up there. And that is either to commit to high press, the team high up the pitch but close together, or we're going to have to commit to play the way Man United did, and that is to be really solid, sit deep, with maybe sort of like a sort of a 4-4-2 shape or a 5-4-1 shape. And I think I disagree with you, Tom, what you said earlier, in that I wouldn't play Lacazette in this game. I wouldn't play Nketiah in this game. I would play Aubameyang and Pepe as a 2, in the way that Man United played James and Martial. So you've got like 2 pacey. Sorry, too pacey. But I wouldn't even play Ozil in this game. I think I'd consider not playing Ozil, and I think that, I think we've got to defend well as a team and look to hit him in transition with pacey players, and that's the way to beat him. I think Man United, the way they played them now in 2 games, is the blueprint to beat Man City, and that is to defend well as a team and play in transition, and it's worked for them twice. In fact, they've won 3 out of 4 games against Man United that way this season, against Man City this season. He won't play that, of course, Arteta. He'll stick to what he believes in. He'll have great insight into the team, the way that Man City plays. He was there for 3.5 years. I don't see us having enough to beat them, quite frankly. I can't remember the last time we beat them in the league. I can remember we beat them at Wembley in a cup semi-final when Sanchez got the winner in extra time. But you tell me the last time we beat them in the league. If anyone knows that in the chat, let's put that in there. I think the last 5 games, it's 14-2, isn't it?
Yeah, is the last time we beat them when Arteta scored that goal from outside the box?
Possibly. That's how long ago it is. we haven't won up there. Do you remember when we won up there a few years ago with that absolute defensive masterclass under Wenger?
All a free kick.
That was all a free kick. Yeah,
2015. Yeah. That was Francis Coquelin and Santi in the midfield.
All a partnership. Yeah.
So we should have won the league. Forget it.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say is just commit to a system and stick with it. Either high press everybody in a structure, sort of close together, and attack them that way, or defend and play on transition. If we can do that, we need our two pacey players, and that will be Pepe and Aubameyang. If we can get them closer together, I always think, as much as I love Pepe, what he brings to the team, I'd love to see him playing with Aubameyang, off Aubameyang, them two combining with their pace, swapping positions, stretching defenders. But we don't see that with Aubameyang inverted on the left and Pepe hogging the touchline on the right. They're so far apart. But in away games, I understand there's an argument for Lacazette holding the ball up, bringing the players into play. But I just watched Man United beat them now in two games playing this system. And I think, is that something with two pacey players that we could do up there? But I think that at the moment, I think Man City have got too much for us. The only thing we've got in our favour is I can see them with the league out of their range, as you say, whether they're mentally up for it, as sharp mentally as they would be if they were chasing a title. And that might give us a chance. But I still think they're a long way ahead of us, Tom.
It looks like the last time we beat them in the league was December 2015. At the Emirates. I was actually at that game. Remember those? Oh. It was at Theo Walcott and Giroud.
Get on a flight for Wednesday.
Yeah. Giroud, that's it. So the last time we won in the league, it was because I was there at the Emirates for that game. So
right. So bearing in mind you're not going to be there on Wednesday, John, can I please have a prediction for that game?
I think we're going to win. I think we're going to. I think we're going to win. It's just hard for me to say that we're going to lose. I think that all right, let me put it this way. We're probably either going to draw or lose. We're probably either going to draw or lose, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Arsenal win, which is what we beat them, which is what we beat them the last time. The last time we beat them, it was 2-1. So I'm going to go with 2-1. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be. Why
would you predict it then if you don't think it's?
Because that's what I want. I'm like putting it out in the universe. There, it's going to be 2-0. They're probably going to beat us. I think we're going to have a hard time scoring on them. But I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal. Screw it.
Okay. Graham, are you equally as optimistic as John?
We'll be unbeaten in the league up to 21-35 on Wednesday night, I think. No, I can't see us getting anything up there, mate. Even if Kevin De Bruyne is not back, I just think they're too strong for us. Look, I just hope that what I'm taking out of this is that I just want to see how we play under Arteta, what difference he's made. I'll be looking at the difference he made between the 3-0 defeat at the Emirates and what he's brought to the team when we play up there. Taking into account if De Bruyne plays, it's going to be massive. If he does play, I think they'll win by 2 or 3 goals. If he doesn't play, it'll be closer. But I think Man City will win by a couple of goals.
Okay, I'm gonna go with a draw, and that's the peak of my optimism is a draw. I'm gonna go with a 2-2 because I can't see how we would get anything without scoring several goals because our defence is not like Manchester United's. Like I took on board everything you said, Graham, and I think that is the best way to beat him is play on the counter attack. But to do that, you need to have a defence that you spent over £200 million on to have a hope of doing that. And that's what United did do. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box. Kamal says, hopefully 2-1 win. He's agreeing with John there. Good to see some positivity.
Let's do it.
Abraham also saying 2-1 to the Arsenal. Albert with a last-minute penalty. Mancunian, 5-0 to Man City.
Come on.
One of our members, thank you ever so much for being a member. If you want to join up with William, please make sure you click that join button. He says 3-2. City's defence is not good. More positivity.
He's right there.
Yeah, Arsenal's Granny says Man City will win 2-0. Bellerin and Holding and Guendouzi as a front three is what Marking Games reckons we should do to get any sort of result in this game. And VCC says City 1, Arsenal 2 if we play Alba up front with Martinelli and Pepe wide. So, John, you've inspired people.
Just don't get your hopes up. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's the best advice that we've had so far is probably to just not get your hopes up.
Especially if De Bruyne is playing.
Make sure you've got something fun planned for Thursday because you're probably going to need it. It's fair to say. But I've really enjoyed the show tonight. I think we've done some really, really good chat, some good analytics as well, which is also a plus. But John, really appreciate you coming on, mate. Where can people find you on Twitter?
You can find me at 305cast.
Good stuff. And John's got loads of stuff. I ask you this every time, but are there any plans to bring back the My Arsenal Miami podcast?
Yes, I'm sorting stuff out. I've already been talking to a couple people that want to do it, and I'm gonna get something. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Yes. Well, you've got a guest right here if you ever want.
Of course. Yes, absolutely. You know you'll be on it. You know you'll be on it.
Good stuff. Graham, where can people find you on Twitter, mate?
They can find me at Graham B195. I also just give a little plug for my little show that I do on AFTV, which is the Tactical Insight Show with Robbie. We're not doing one this week, funny enough, because obviously our work schedules are such that I can't get to London, and he's got to get up to Manchester earlier for the game on Wednesday. So we won't be doing one, unfortunately, looking at the West Ham game. But what I do every Monday, try and get a Tactical Insight Show out that evening, which I hope, I'm very impressed with pleased with the feedback I get for the show, Tom. It's sort of like we've started using sort of like technology now. Finally, the show started in my bedroom when he used to interview me there. Then it generated down to my kitchen, like where I'm with you tonight. Then I went up to London. I used to be in his office on a little whiteboard. Then we moved to magnets.
Wow.
And now we've finally got technology. So it's sort of like amazing. I really enjoyed doing that. So if anyone wants to catch that, I'm really pleased with the feedback I'm getting for that. Also, as you know, do some stuff on Same Old Arsenal with Craig Scott. And looking forward to going back and doing some shows. It's difficult for me to get him on podcasts because of my work commitments. But, it's always a pleasure to come on your pod. Your pod is always top quality. You're a great host, and I enjoy the guests you have on because I do follow it myself. I do watch it often. When you do one of your shows, I sort of like come in about 1 o'clock in the morning and put it on while I'm sort of like cooking myself something in the kitchen.
Oh, I send you to sleep. That's what you're saying, mate. I'm sending
No, not at all. No,
your soothing drawl.
I do think you have a lot of good content, mate. Yeah. So so that's where they can find me. Graham B195. I follow back all Gooners, and so you can find me there. I hope everybody has enjoyed the show tonight as much as I have.
Yes, I think they have from the feedback in the chat box. Thank you ever so much. I know, Avon, I know you said questions, but we have run out of time. I know we will definitely. I need to schedule them in more often with these shows, but we just end up chatting about Arsenal because we love it so much for so long. Sometimes we do run out of time, but next week's podcast, I promise, we will get some questions in there 100%. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. You can find the guys on Twitter where they've told you. Their links will be in the description, of course, as well after the show goes live. You can find us at the Gooner Talk TV. Please make sure you like the video if you've enjoyed things. There's 140 of you watching now, which on a Sunday evening is pretty darn good for us these days. So thank you ever so much, guys. And we'll see you again very soon. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that join button, and the notification bell too. Oh, I'm praying for a 2-1 win, John. I really am. I just can't see it happening, mate. I just can't see it happening. But
me either.
See you very soon. We'll be there straight after the game to review it, of course, too. So see you very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.